We'll call this meeting of the City Council to order, and we'll have a roll call.
You're starting this evening with the Industrial Development Authority. Okay. Director Craven.
Here.
Director Kildee.
Here.
Director McDonald.
Here.
Vice Chairman Morgan.
Here.
Chairman Little.
Morgan, would you do
Yes,
the
please.
flag speech?
Could everyone please stand? Hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is a meeting of the Industrial Development Authority of Camarillo. This is the Industrial Development Authority of Camarillo. We have any amendments to the agenda?
No amendments?
Any public comments? Anyone wishes to address the Industrial Development Authority? Not. We have the consent calendar.
Move the approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
Moved and seconded, and we approve the consent calendar. Please vote. That motion is carried 5-0. Do we have any departmental items? No departmental items. And unless there's any business, we'll stand adjourned. Call to order the Camarillo Capital Improvement Corporation. The record show that all members are present. The first item will be, is there any amendments to this agenda?
No amendments?
Is there any public comments? Anyone wishes to talk to the Capital Improvement Corporation? These are all special corporations or agencies that were put together over the years by the City Council to do specific things. For the most part, those things have been done, but the corporations and so forth remain in effect. And every year we have to have an annual meeting to take care of the business of that agency. Okay, we have the consent calendar.
Move the approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there a discussion? Not, please vote. That motion carries 5-0. We have departmental, any departmental items? No departmental items. And unless there's business to come before us, we will stand adjourned. We have one more to do. Call the meeting of the Public Finance Authority to order. To record show that all members are present. Are there any amendments to this agenda?
There's no amendments.
Is there any public comments? We have the consent calendar.
Move the approval.
Motion and
Second.
second. Please vote. That passes 5-0. Have no departmental items, and so if there's no business, we will stand adjourned. Okay.
I'd like to call the Camarillo Sanitary District meeting for January 28th to order, please, and let the record reflect that all the directors are present. Any amendments to this agenda?
No amendments?
Public comments for the San District? Go down to item 3. It's a consent calendar.
Move the approval.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. That passes unanimously. Okay, let's get down to comments from staff. Comments from staff?
I don't have any comments. Tally, do you have anything?
Comments from board members?
Yes.
Mrs. Craven?
Yes.
Mr. Morgan and I attended the CASA meeting, and now that I'm back, I'll tell you I went. There were several things, and I think different things caught our ears, but in the Ledge Committee, as you know, I might know, been on the CASA Ledge Committee for quite a while, and there's a bill number 119, introduced by Senator Hill on the 14th of January. And that bill might seem, it's adding to the Business and Professional Code, but it might seem innocuous, but it would treat, it would put all of our sewer lines and our water lines into the category of hazardous materials carriers. And it would require us to mark them all above ground, and anything that's been abandoned would also have to be marked as long as it's still in the ground. And it would form a new state authority that would regulate all of this. And that new authority would have the ability to issue fines, and then the authority would keep the fines. So we know where that would go. Be able to collect a bunch of money and keep it. And so I think we need to keep a really good eye on this bill. CASA is going to be watching it. The background is that Senator Hill represents the area where San Bruno is. And the gas line that exploded happened to be above a sewer line. And apparently PG&E is trying to say that there was work done on the sewer line, and that's what caused the gas line explosion. And so therefore, these are all, everything that we have in the ground is hazardous. So I think it's a stretch. I think we operate, and public agencies operate their lines in a responsible manner, and I think we need to really watch that one. Mm-hmm. There was an excellent presentation on design build, which we're going to be looking at for our desal plant, and I'm going to be getting that report and give it to staff because it went pretty much in depth into a lot of things that I think we need to look at. And there was one other thing. When we did our rates study a couple of years ago for SANI, we looked at what was called volumetric pricing, and we decided as a board not to do volumetric pricing. Volumetric pricing, you might remember, is when you take the low month, which is usually January, water usage, and decide that that's how much water goes down the sewer because people are usually not watering during a low water month and during the winter because there's a lot of rain. And you charge people according to how much, it would be kind of like water. We decided against that. But what I want to tell you is that the State Water Board is currently looking at requiring agencies that serve both water and wastewater to have volumetric pricing. So I think we need to keep an eye on that and keep in touch with CASA and the lobbyists on that one. And I'm sure the Ledge Committee will be. And then, the other thing about this SB 119, we not only would have to mark and be responsible for everything that happens with all of our pipes, but also for the laterals. And you might know that we have the lines that go down the street and the laterals go to each individual connection. And they are currently owned by the property owner. And they would still be owned by the property owner, but we would be responsible. And I think that's a big change for us. So that's my report from CASA.
Anything else?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Morgan?
Of 34 years I've been going to the CASA conference, this is probably the most educational because there's a lot more than what Charlotte was saying. I had a copy of each outline that people made their presentations made. And if you read this, and I'll give this to you to read, you'll find out what it's talking about because it outlines a lot of these different things in detail, a little more detail. Additionally, there's one other one. I mean, there's a lot of them, but one I was very impressed with. That was the last one. And that was the gentleman from Canada that came there to talk about how they use biosolids and compost up there to recover land. And they're doing a great job. They showed pictures of where they're using it, what it looked like before, what it looks like now, on and on and on. But those are the kinds of things that you can't just tell you in detail. You have to see it. But this might give you some information, and I'll leave it for each to read or make a copy, so that you can get some of what we got. And what Charlotte was talking about, those are the most important areas. It details it in here. So I'll leave it for everyone to read. That's it.
Anyone else? All right, so no further business. We're going to adjourn to our February 4th meeting at 6:30 p.m. at the Camarillo Public Library.
Call the meeting of the Camarillo Successor Agency to order. The records show that all members are present. We have any amendments to the agenda?
No amendments?
Are there any public comments? Anyone wish to speak before the successor agency? If not, we move on to the consent calendar.
Move the approval.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the consent calendar. Any discussion? Please vote. That motion approves 5-0. Any departmental items or
No departmental items.
any comments from staff?
No comments.
Any comments from board members? We're hearing none. There's no public hearings. We stand adjourned. We'll call to order the Camarillo City Council. And again, we'll have the record show that all members of the council are present. Any amendments to the agenda?
No amendments?
We do. We do have the consent calendar. Is there any?
Move the approval of consent calendar.
Second.
Your Honor, I have a question on one, and just a quick question. The reason I didn't ask it be pulled, if I might. That's on item M, and I guess this would be a finance, so Mr. Campbell question. In reading this, and I'm sorry if I missed it, but can you tell us what the total of the delinquent penalties that we're waiving would be? And if it's in here, I apologize for not finding
I
it.
don't believe that dollar amount made its way into the final agenda report, and I do apologize for that. I believe it was at the sum of about $200-some thousand, and what those delinquent penalties and fees were things that were imposed by the county while this particular debt was on the roll. At first, it was to be repaid through the county tax roll, and there were certain things that once it went into a delinquent status, those were fees and penalties that were calculated per California Government Code section that are county-imposed fees. When we then took the steps to remove this from the tax roll and to solve the delinquency of the debt outside of the tax roll process, this then became one of those procedural matters that we needed to take care of. We're not actually waiving city-imposed fees. We're waiving fees that were applicable while they were on the tax roll of the county, and
With
it's
the
more
county.
so procedural.
Okay, great, thank you.
I just noted that we have a person in the audience that wishes to be heard on the consent calendar, so unless there's any objections, we should probably
Fine.
ask her to, Barbara Williams, you want to?
Or did you want to vote on the consent calendar?
She's speaking.
Oh, she's speaking, okay.
It's not going to affect your vote. Mayor Little, Vice Mayor Morgan, Camarillo City Council, City Manager Fang, and staff. Since the Halloween storm and the first debris flow, the City of Camarillo and our community have been through a lot. Each storm and each debris flow gave us a better insight into Caneo Mountain and the damage caused by the Springs fire. It took multiple disastrous debris flows to bring us together as a team, dedicated to saving lives and improving our chances against future storms. The city voted to pre-fund the NRCS project and to manage that project, including the selection of a qualified contractor to implement the fourth plan. The choice of Coastal Grading and Excavating Incorporated to clean up the debris from the December 12th storm and to build 3 debris platforms December 13th through the 31st resulted in debris flow mitigation that has been through 2 mild storms. Coastal Grading worked long hours to remove nearly 16,000 cubic yards of material, as only a well-choreographed team could do. Our community is grateful for the implementation of the NRCS mitigation plans, the expert work by Coastal Grading under critical schedules, and the city's continuing work to help our community survive the rest of the rainy season. We look forward to our recurring work as a team to help homeowners remove the debris from the December 12th storm and to help our community to recover. Thank you for coordinating the town hall to provide our community with access to those who can help our community. Thank you, Barbara Williams.
Thank you, Barbara.
That was with regard to items I and J.
Okay. Well, thank you, Barbara.
Move the approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. No objections, please vote. Motion carried 5-0. Motion's approved. Consent calendar is approved. We now move on to the item 4 on our city council agenda is the invocation ad hoc committee report. This is a verbal report that myself and Councilmember Craven were members of it. We've had a couple meetings with city manager and the city clerk and obtained a number of pieces of information. And it's our belief that given the circumstances, which I'll relate in a minute, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to try to get into that program. If you look at your agenda items, the first group of them indicates the extent to which the ministerial association is in existence, and if you can see that, it's not a very large organization. Certainly does not include nearly half of the churches that are in Camarillo. So the idea of using them as a clearinghouse or as a administrative to help us schedule and organize this program doesn't seem to be very likely. The other part of your agenda that was provided shows the number of IRS tax-exempt organizations in this city. And you will note there's 86 of them. That means that doesn't mean they're all churches, but they certainly have been declared a beneficial or religious organization. Some are probably just fundraisers. Some are maybe, a couple people, but they are in fact the churches that are recognized by the IRS in this community. And as such, if you recall, the court decision is that we were to seek out every church or every one that had an interest in participating in this effort. It seems to us that would, without the assistance of an outside organization such as the ministers, we are going to have a very difficult time of trying to organize this and keep it organized. So that was our feeling, is that we just simply place the matter on file and move ahead. Councilman?
Yeah, I think the other thing is, if you look at the response that the city clerk got from the Ministerial Association, they listed the people and the churches they're associated with as their members, their active members. They have 30 people on the list, but there are only 13 who are active members. Every one of those is a Protestant church. We'd have to reach out to not just the Protestant churches, but the Catholic churches, the
Synagogue, Jewish.
The Jewish faith, and Baha'i, and all of the others. So I think that it just, our direction from council was to look at it and come back with a recommendation with the consideration that it was not to put undue added work on the city clerk's office. And that we've done this at least 2 or 3 times before, 2 times since I've been on the council, and both times it failed because We had to stop it because it was impossible to get people to come. People would say they'd come, they didn't show up, and this clerk would end up, even though for one of them, the Ministerial Association was supposed to be getting people, that afternoon they'd call and say, we're sorry, we haven't gotten anybody, and it just didn't work. The clerk's office would get on the phone and try to call all afternoon to find somebody to show up. So with that history here, and with this knowledge that there are 87 churches in town, and if you go through and look, you'll see a good many of these are names. They're not just the name of somebody who has gotten ordained and formed a nonprofit corporation so he or she can perform weddings. A lot of them are I mean, we have an astounding number of churches in Camarillo, so I agree wholeheartedly that we should just, this report should be received, filed, and not considered further.
Hey, Mr. Morgan.
It's kind of funny because I talked to Rabbi Lang, bishop of the Mormon Church, and other religions that are around. They're all for it, ready to go with it. And that doesn't mean you just restrict it to the Ministerial Association. You can bring an organization together that includes all. And that's what I thought we were looking at, not just researching what happened to us in the past or whatever, because we did have success for many years. It stopped in 1980, whatever. That's when it stopped, because Tom Martin was doing it in the end because the guys didn't show up. But before that, it was there for years.
And then we tried it again when Deborah was here, and that was long after 1989.
Well, I'm just saying to you, it went on here for many years. And did we talk to any of these other groups that you're talking about, like the Jewish, the Mormons, or others?
No, we did not, because
that was not our direction from council.
I did, and they all wanted to do it.
Our
Seventh-day
direction
Adventists?
is, this is everything, this is nothing. And there were 3 people who said, don't put extra work on the city clerk's office.
we were operating on the basis that we could get this accomplished without additional burden to the clerk. And it does not appear to us, given the number of religious organizations there are in the city, and the lack of a very large group of people who could organize it. It did not appear to us to be something that was quite feasible unless we were to undertake a complete effort to organize it ourselves, and that wasn't our marching orders.
Your Honor.
Yes.
I agree with the ad hoc committee's situation that did the investigation, did their homework on this. You have to remember we have a very limited staff in Jeffrey's department too. So to me, after you've done all your due diligence and looked into it very thoroughly, I think that you've absolutely come up with the right situation at this particular point.
Any other comments?
Move to receive and file the report.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded, we receive and place the report on file. Please vote. Motion's carried 4-1, with Mr. Morgan voting no. Okay, we'll move ahead to Public Works. First is a resolution approving the final pay estimate and accepting improvements on ST 1302 Lewis Road landscaping wall and monument.
Yes, Your Honor, council members. This item is normally one that you would find on the consent calendar. However, we thought we'd pull it off and show some before and afters and kind of walk through it. It turned out to be a real nice project. So Ken's here with the CIP program, and he'll be presenting it.
Mayor and Council, my name is Ken Matsuoka with Public Works. The Lewis Road landscaping wall and monument was recently completed. The project was to construct a screen wall and landscaping on Lewis Road from Pleasant Valley Road to Dawson Place. A gateway monument was constructed on the westerly corner of Pleasant Valley Road and Lewis. And a matching monument will be constructed by others on the opposite corner of the intersection in the future when the site is developed. Let me just go through that. All right. And let's see, next photo here. Before construction, the westerly side of Lewis Road had many yards of businesses visible from the street, with various storage yards and materials that could be seen from the street that should have been screened. And Lewis Road was widened by the county and state a few years ago, and that construction removed a number of tall trees that used to screen these storage yards from view. Another photo of the area before construction shows the security fence behind one of the businesses with barbed wire and was unattractive. The project that was constructed created a screen wall with aesthetic features, landscaping, including vines, trees, and shrubs, as you can see. And this wall effectively screens the storage yards from view. As the vines, trees, and shrubs mature, this will break up the solid wall. Now, this photo shows the monument at the northwest corner of Lewis Road and Pleasant Valley Road. The monument helps define the southerly gateway to the city. And we'll get into some numbers here. The final construction contract cost was just over $1.5 million and was by C.A. Rasmussen. Of that, about $200,000 was for the monument, and about $1.3 million was for the screen wall and landscaping. Revenue sources for construction included $987,000 in federal funds and about $513,000 in traffic mitigation fees. The suggested action for tonight is to approve the final pay estimate, accept the final improvements, and authorize the mayor to sign the notice of completion for the project.
Okay.
And staff is available for questions.
Are there any questions of staff?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Could I make a comment?
Sure.
I have to say, all my years that I've lived in Camarillo, it's been a number of them, it looks as good as it ever has down there, if not better. This has really picked up that area, and I wasn't sure exactly how it was going to turn out, but I have to say that it looks really nice there, and a gateway. The goal is a gateway to our community and a gateway to the university. I have to commend the staff and the council members and the citizens for putting up with this, but it really, really looks good.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Just one. What was left out is you also did a drainage system down in there in front of the monument that helps drain the waters out of that area too.
Yeah, there was already a drainage system that was existing. We had to modify it slightly to fit the wall in there.
But it looks a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pleasure, council.
Oh, I just want to, again, thank you for a great job. I know we took a lot of flack, if that's the right word, when we started this, but I've heard nothing but compliments since it's finished, once people understood what we were really doing and the purpose of it. So
Right.
Great job, particularly when they realized the funding sources. It helped too. It was a good job.
Any further discussion?
Your Honor, I'll make a motion that we adopt a resolution approving the final pay estimate, accepting improvements, and authorizing the mayor to sign the notice of completion.
Second, Your Honor.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, please vote.
Thank you.
Motion carries 5-0. Move to community development. This is a public hearing resolution approving financing by the California Municipal Finance Authority of RPD 190 and joint exercise of powers agreement. Is there a staff report?
Yes. Thank you, Honorable Mayor Little and City Council members. Jackie Lee will be presenting this item.
Thank you, Mayor Little, members of the City Council. CNC Development Company, LLC, has requested that the California Municipal Finance Authority, or CMFA, serve as the municipal issuer of the bonds in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $12 million of tax-exempt revenue bonds. The proceeds of the bonds will be used to, 1, finance the acquisition and construction of an approved residential plan development number 190, which is a 60-unit affordable rental housing project, and 2, pay certain expenses incurred in connection with the issuance of the bonds. The Federal Tax Equity and Financial Responsibility Act, or TEFRA, requires that a public hearing be held by the governing body of the jurisdiction in which a project to be financed is located, and that the governing body approve the proposed financing by the issuer. And to provide you with some background, the Planning Commission approved RP 190 on January 21st, 2014, which allows for the development of 60 affordable rental units. The project is on a 2-acre site located in the Springville Specific Plan and is intended to satisfy the requirements to provide 20% affordable units within Tract 5561. Of the 60 affordable units, 30 of the units would be reserved for very low-income households and 30 units for low-income households. The 60-unit affordable rental housing project is to be owned by a California limited partnership to be created and controlled by CNC Development Company, LLC, and operated by Advanced Property Services, LLC. And here's the location of RPD 190. It's located just north of U.S. Highway 101 and west of Spring Oak Road. The California Municipal Finance Authority, or CMFA, was created pursuant to a joint exercise of powers agreement to assist local governments, nonprofit organizations, and businesses with the issuance of taxable and tax-exempt bonds. To date, over 200 municipalities have become members of CMFA. In order for the CMFA to have the authority to serve as the issuer of the bonds for the project, it is necessary for the City of Camarillo to become a member of the CMFA. The bonds to be issued by the CMFA for the project will be the sole responsibility of CNC Development Company. It's important to also point out that the city will have no financial, legal, moral obligation, liability, or responsibility for the repayment of the bonds for the financing of the project. All financing documents with respect to the issuance of the bonds will contain clear disclaimers that the bonds are not obligations of the city or the state of California, but are to be paid for solely from funds provided by the borrower. There are no costs associated with membership in the CMFA, and the city will in no way become exposed to any financial liability by reason of its membership in the CMFA. Participation by the city in the CMFA will not constitute any type of indebtedness by the city. And through its financing activities, CMFA shares a portion of the issuance fees with member communities and makes donations to support local charities. With respect to the proposed financing, the city will be the recipient of 25% of the issuance fee for the benefit of the city's general fund. Outside of holding the TEFRA hearing, adopting the required resolution, and executing the joint exercise of powers agreement of the CMFA, no other participation or activity of the city with respect to the issuance of the bonds will be required. So in conclusion, there are 2 actions that the City Council is being requested of, which are 1, to adopt a resolution approving, authorizing, and directing execution of a joint exercise of powers agreement relating to the California Municipal Finance Authority and approving the issuance of revenue bonds by the CMFA for the benefit of CNC Development Company, LLC, to provide for the financing of a 60-unit multifamily affordable rental housing project. And 2, to authorize the city manager to sign the joint exercise of powers agreement. And that concludes our report, and staff is available for any questions, and representatives from CMFA and CNC Development Company are also here tonight.
Are there any questions, Mr. Morgan?
This kind of reminds me of the Park Glen Apartments. I think Charlotte will remember that, where we have no responsibility. We're a conduit for this financing that goes through. and all the responsibilities due to the gentleman, the people taking it over for affordable housing, low-income housing. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
So
actually, we're not even the conduit for it. We're just simply authorizing.
without us, they couldn't do it, Bill. That's why it's
Well, I
kind of a
understand,
conduit.
but what we're doing is to join a joint powers authority that will be the conduit for issuing the bonds. Is that right?
Yes, that's
If we
it.
didn't sign it, would it go through?
No, we.
Thank you. We're a conduit. And we've said this before on the other project. We're kind of like a conduit to get it through.
I have a question. On the previous ones, we did receive something back from the ones, and it wasn't just Park Glen. There was Park Glen Senior, Park Glen,
Camarillo.
others, and then the ones down the street.
Boys and Girls Club, too.
Oh, that's different, Boys and
No,
Girls Club.
Boys and Girls Club are different. That's owned by the Housing Authority.
Yeah, that's a different story.
But these on Lantana, one group, the Oaks or something like that.
Right, that's the other one.
Had it, and we got money, and that's the money we used for our community service grants. And so will the amount we get from, I guess this is a finance question, maybe, the amount we get from this, will it be comparable to what we got from the others?
This one's bigger.
We don't have the estimate on this
Okay.
one, so I don't know how it relates to the previous.
Okay. The reason we did it that, and just for everybody's edification, we put that into a special fund for community service grants, and those community service grants are very defined in who they can go to and how they can be used. And they were to be used for everybody in the community, including the people who live there.
That's right.
And that was our justification.
And it was coming down to the end.
Yeah,
We needed
since
something
then,
like
we've
this.
added general fund money, but for many years, it was just the money we got from those.
Could we get that information sent to us?
The applicant is here, and they may be able to provide you with more information on that.
Can I ask a question before we do that, though? Because I think we're going off in a whole different direction here. My understanding is that this doesn't fall into that same category as the conduit financing. And the funds coming in go into the general fund, as it says in the staff report. It doesn't go in and follow that process we did on the other ones.
The other ones went to the general fund, too. The city council.
But we're not, okay, read your staff report. We're not tying it to the same program that we did if you read the staff report. That's my question.
Council, I think, and the finance director and I haven't conferred on this, but I think it will probably take some type of subsequent action on the city council to move this from the general fund to a special purpose for the use for the community services grants. And at some point, staff will have to come back and have you make a motion to move that money.
If this council so desires. I mean, that's not part of the action of approving this
I don't think I
tonight.
said that.
But you're assuming that it's going to happen,
No,
and it may not. So it's a whole different, we're
Okay.
mixing things up here tonight.
Okay. Well, would you identify yourself for the record, please?
Sure. My name is Ben Barker. I'm with the California Municipal Finance Authority.
Okay.
So the CMFA is the issuer of the bonds, which, like the presentation stated, that alleviates the city of any responsibility with the bonds.
Could you pull the mic up just a little bit farther?
Sure. As part of the CMFA's issuance, we always give back to the local communities. We give 25% of our fees back to the host municipality. And it just goes to the general fund. At that point, whatever the city does with the money, it's the city does with the money. But in this case, it's based off 25% of the total bonds amount that will be issued. And so it'll be roughly $7,500 to $8,000 back to the city. And then
It's a one-time.
it's a one-time.
One-time payment, right?
Correct. We share the fee once the bonds are issued.
Okay.
And how much is that figure again? Was 7,500, did you say?
8,000 to 7,500, and that's based off of what the developer actually ends up borrowing.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay.
The one other thing to note is that the CMFA also gives another 25% of our fees that we bring in back to the 501c3. In this case, it's the developer, so we lower their cost of financing by another 25%.
Okay. All right. Any further questions? Thank you very much. I think you clarified a lot for us. Any other questions of staff? Doesn't show on the, but I assume I have to open a public hearing. This is a public hearing.
Yes.
So we'll call the public hearing to order and ask if there's any persons wishes. I have no cards. Anyone wishes to make a public comment on this action? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing.
Your Honor.
May I ask another question before we
Sure,
take a
go
motion?
ahead.
Mr. Campbell, will this amount appear on our financials as we get them every month as the present conduit financing does?
The way it's being described, I would say no.
Right.
I would suggest that I personally, I think from what I hear from most of this council, they would like to at least consider moving this into at least for a one-time contribution to that.
But that's not the 7,500. I'm talking about the 12 million. If you look at our monthly reports, we talk about the conduit funding. It's tracked on the city's investment. This will not be. It's once we finish tonight, we're done.
We're done.
Now,
The 12 million is not part of this, I'm sorry.
No, there will be money flowing into the city from that.
Well, the 80,000.
And we will be notified by our finance department when it does come in. Is that not right, Ronnie?
That's correct, but what
Thank
I
you.
was responding to as far as Ms. McDonald's question was, in the investment report, there are several conduit financings that we were a part of several years ago that are reported on a monthly basis. This would not appear in the monthly investment report.
This would just be money flowing into the city.
The money
And
flowing
that, to me,
into
is
the city
it's called a
would be one-time
conduit. Somebody's
revenue
doing it
that
for
would
you.
be called out in the revenue reports, yes.
Mhm.
but It's not an
When-
ongoing.
Probably as other revenue.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay.
So thank you very much.
Your Honor.
Yes.
I would move to adopt a resolution approving, authorizing, and directing execution of a joint exercise of powers agreement relating to the California Municipal Finance Authority and approving the issuance of revenue bonds by the CMFA for the benefit of CNC Development Company, LLC, to provide for the financing of a 60-unit multifamily affordable rental housing project, and to authorize the city manager to sign the joint exercise of powers agreement.
I think we should probably take both these separately. So is there a motion? Is there a second?
I'll second the first.
To the first. Is there any discussion on that first motion? Hearing none, please vote. That motion passes 5-0.
Your Honor, I'll move that we authorize the city managers to sign the joint exercise of powers agreement.
There's a second.
Second.
Moved and second. Is there any discussion? If not, please vote. Motion carries 5-0. So it's done. And Ronnie, when the money does show up, the $75,000 to $8,000, you'll get back to us on it, and we'll decide then what we want to do.
How many units are in this project? I can't remember. 60? Thank you. 60 units.
Okay, we'll move ahead to regional housing needs allocation update.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor Little and members of the City Council. Tim Moran of our office will be presenting this item.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Tonight I will be giving you an overview of the regional housing needs allocation for the City of Camarillo and an update on where we are now in the process. At its meeting of January 14th, 2015, the City Council requested a report on the city's regional housing needs allocation, or RHNA, be given prior to the hearing of the upcoming proposed general plan amendments. A little background. State law requires that a local jurisdiction accommodate a share of the region's projected housing needs for the planning period. This allocation of housing is known as the housing needs allocation. State law mandates that jurisdictions provide sufficient land to accommodate a variety of housing opportunities for all economic segments of the community. Compliance with this requirement is measured by the jurisdiction's ability to identify adequate sites to accommodate the RHNA. The Southern California Association of Governments, or SCAG, as the regional planning agency, is responsible for allocating the RHNA to individual jurisdictions within the region. The RHNA is distributed by income category. These categories are extremely low income, very low income, moderate income, and above moderate income. It's important to note that these income designations are based purely on density. For example, lower income units are zoned at least 30 units per acre, whereas moderate income units would be 15 to 20 units per acre, and above moderate units would be single-family homes. Now looking at our current RENA cycle, which is 2014 to 2021. For the fifth cycle housing element update, the City of Camarillo was allocated a RENA of 2,224 units. Those are broken down as 266 extremely low income units, 273 very low income, 366 low income, and 411 moderate income, and 908 above moderate income. This chart comes from the 2014 City of Camarillo General Plan housing element, and what it illustrates is how we were able to satisfy these RENA requirements through the use of zoning. We can see that through a couple specific plans as well as proposed projects and opportunity areas, the city has a surplus in all categories except moderate, which has a deficit of 137 units. Now looking at our previous RENA cycle, which was 2006 to 2014. For the fourth cycle housing element update, which was 2006 to 2014, the City of Camarillo was allocated a RENA of 3,340 units. These were broken into 727 very low, 591 low income, 687 moderate income, and 1,335 above moderate income.
Excuse me, could I interrupt and ask a question? How does, let's see, the state is the one that allocates these into different categories of income? Is that how it works?
Yes.
And what do they rely on for the data to make those assumptions?
They try to allocate it based on a spread of demographics so that it relates to the census data, so that it has an appropriate ratio in terms of what the existing community has to what the needs are.
Okay, so they use the census data based upon the income of that reported there, and then spread it on that basis?
To try to satisfy the needs of spreading
Right.
available housing to all income segments.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so a couple of key points to take away. RENA numbers can be satisfied by providing the opportunity for residential development through zoning. So it's important to keep in mind that RENA does not require that all of the units be constructed. And with that, we can look at the previous RENA cycle. We can see that we only actually completed 42%. 42% of the units allocated were actually constructed. But with that being said, that RENA cycle was completely satisfied through the use of zoning and providing opportunity areas. And then just to give an update of our current RENA cycle, since January 1, 2014, we have constructed 68 very low, 72 low, and 32 moderate income units for a total of 172 units. And with that, I will turn it over to Dave Norman.
Thank you very much. One of the questions that's often asked is when we're looking at new general plan amendments and referrals for those amendments, what effect the construction of the proposed product, whether it's owner-occupied or renter-occupied, would have on the ratio of owner and renter versus product in the city. And so starting today, with the best information we have provided by the Census Bureau, we see here that the city of Moore Park, for example, has a ratio of 76% owner-occupied versus 23% renter-occupied. Simi Valley, 74% and 26%. Thousand Oaks, 72% and 28%. City of Camarillo, 70% owner-occupied and 30% renter-occupied. All of Ventura County, which includes all the cities and all the unincorporated area, is 65% and 35%. So you can see the city of Camarillo is 5 percentage points higher on owner-occupied housing than all of Ventura County when taken all into account. So in other words, we're better than the average. City of San Buenaventura, 55%, 45%, and the same percentage for the city of Oxnard. And this is basically the same the same position we were in when I gave you this information last year. So how does the ratio change as we look at what is currently approved and what we're looking at for general plan referrals? So starting today, according to the Census Bureau, we have 16,415 owner-occupied housing units and 7,185 renter-occupied units, which gives us that ratio of 70%, 30%. Now, if we add in all the units that are currently under construction or are approved or are pending approval, meaning they're solidly within the planning cycle here, then we're looking at an addition of 786 for-sale units and 1,213 rental units, which brings our ratio now to 67% owner-occupied and 33% renter-occupied. Now, if we add in all the residential GPA referrals, and this would include the Mission Oaks townhomes, which is the first one you'll see in our current referral cycle. There's 129 for-sale units there. EJM, Hawkeye Village, Gateway, currently that site plan is proposing 300 for-sale and 24 rental. Rancho Associates, Springville West, we're counting that as 200 for-sale, although a portion of that, probably about 150 of it, could go up into the category above, but because of an adjoining general plan referral on that property, it's just, we had to figure out where to put the numbers, and we just left it with the GPA referral because it changes what's already been approved. So we're just keeping it here, and it really doesn't move the percentages either way. And then Shea Home St. John's Seminary, currently 261 for sale, and that's being proposed as a 55-plus age-restricted property. That brings us to 890 for sale units and 24 rental units for the GPA referrals, which brings our ratio to 68% owner-occupied, 32% renter-occupied. Any questions?
Any questions of the
I have a
council?
question, if you would.
Yes.
Yeah, Dave, is there kind of a sweet spot that you look for as far as owner-occupied and rental? Is there any equation that you kind of look for to kind of get that balance to be as apropos as it could be?
Actually, there's very scant literature on this type of thing because communities are different. I mean, you can look at the difference between Oxnard and Moore Park, and you know, would the people in Oxnard say that, you know, their ratio of renter, their higher ratio of renter-occupied properties is somehow more desirable than, or less desirable than Moore Parks? It really depends on the ethos of the community. I'll leave it at that.
Well, I mean, I've kind of always felt that, you know, owner-occupied is definitely a good thing. But on the other hand, I've got, you know, a lot of people I know that have actually downsized and actually moved into a situation where they're renting now. So that's why I asked what, if there's a formula or anything that you look for in that, or...
One of the things I can tell you is that our experience here in Camarillo has definitely been market-driven. Pulling your attention to the slide that I previously showed, when we go to the middle of that page where we see all the units under construction, approved or pending approval, you can definitely see there was a swing towards rental unit approvals. And a good reason, because during the recession, a lot of people lost their homes and they had to become renters. And then because of, you know, the mortgage experience that many people had, there actually became a preference toward rental occupied housing. We're still seeing a demand in rental occupied housing because of that reason. Plus also there's a major demographic shift happening on both ends of the age spectrum. One on the upper age side where you find older individuals either, aging in place if they can, but if not, moving to other situations where their cost of care in total, meaning that they can either have congregate care or other services bundled with their care, leads them to a rental situation. You have that end of the spectrum where things are going. And remember, this baby boom wave is one of the largest portions of the demographic wave, and they're all moving that way. Not necessarily that their preferences are rental or not, but they are all aging, and it's a major age wave that's hitting all over the United States. The other wave that we have to look at is the millennials, and they're all struggling, trying to get through college. Some of them have finished, and some of them have gone back home, but they're having a hard time just even finding their first apartment. Forget about buying a house.
First job.
Or first job, that's right. So that's why we see a lot of renter stuff. Is that bad or good? Not necessarily. I mean, with the millennials, their engagement with community and on issues has not been tied to whether or not they own a house, which has been the traditional model for civic engagements. It's based on something totally different, how they grew up and what's important to them. So I think our perceptions in terms of what makes a stable community is a lot different than it has been traditionally. Whether that's good or bad, it really depends on how the community is. Is it safe? Is it engaged? And those type of factors.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes. Yes, Mike.
You hit it, partly hit it. We're going to have a university of 15,000 or more eventually. 600 or 700, I can't remember, each year now. They're getting new
Hoping
students.
for 1,000 a year.
But they're getting that much every year now. And so the young students are looking for housing. And if you go throughout the community, you go to Starbucks, you go to some of these other places, a lot of those are college students working. And so they have to live together. And I've run across several that are living together in the community. And so that's, again, affecting our rents, the rental units, and will be in the future.
Yes.
I have a question, or perhaps just a clarification, or maybe summing it up. When our new cycle goes from 2014 to 2021, I know in the past we were able to credit some when you're right there on the years that when we, like on 14, I think we were able to, when we started that last cycle, we were able to use some credits from the prior one. We weren't able to do that with this cycle. So what, in this 2014 cycle, it was things that were actually accomplished in 2014 forward. We didn't get any of those credits that we used to be able to get, correct?
The previous cycle, known as the fourth cycle, is done, and the city had satisfied all the requirements to accommodate their regional housing needs allocation. In the current cycle, we anticipate, again, an opportunity to comply with our regional housing needs allocation through existing zoning and property and underutilized sites and proposed developments. So we feel as though by 2021, we will have satisfied RENA.
Okay. I didn't ask my question quite right. That credit that we used to be able to do, if you had more, or if you started but it hadn't been completed, you used to be able to credit one cycle or another. We're not able to do that anymore. So it has to be within the specific time period.
Correct.
Correct. So we don't have any of that crossover.
Joe and I were having a discussion about that particular question, and Joe reminded me there's kind of a flip side to that, and that's more of a penalty issue that I think Joe can explain that may help with the understanding of that.
Okay, so we're currently in what's known as the fifth cycle, which is from 2014 to 2021. The prior cycle was known as the fourth cycle, and that ended in 2014. During that time of trying to update our housing element for this current fifth cycle, if we found ourselves in the city of Camarillo to not have satisfied our RENA for the fourth cycle in 2014, we would have had to accommodate all those numbers that we hadn't accommodated and they would have also carried forward into the 5th cycle, so it's almost like a double dip.
Right. Okay.
We didn't have that circumstance, fortunately, for our community, but that would have been a perceived penalty on us.
Okay. And could I just get my clarification ones? There's a little bit of a misconception out there and that you have to build all of these, and you made it clear tonight that's not true. You just have to provide opportunity.
Correct. You're correct.
Through
Pretty
zoning.
evident because of the last cycle was in the recession. We didn't meet our goals, but the property was there to be built on if somebody.
Well, we met our goals because the opportunity was there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we met our goals.
If people had wanted to build on those zoned properties, and we had the housing allotments ready, we'd have to allow it.
Sure.
If it,
Okay,
if it fits.
it's now a little past.
Your Honor,
Yes.
I had something on this item.
Sure, sorry.
Well, I wasn't done, but.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
So my final question is, with 2000 and the 2014-2021 cycle, we have enough that are in the pipeline, so to speak, that have approvals, that are under construction, who have their rights to build, zoning's there. We don't have to change zoning on any properties in order to meet this cycle.
That's correct. There was a slide that showed that we do have a deficit in the moderate category, and it's also in the staff report. But we also have a surplus in the very low and low category. So potentially the surplus in the very low and low could accommodate for that shortfall. But it's on your staff report. It indicates that the moderate.
Let me just clarify. We have satisfied per HCD, Housing and Community Development, State of California, all our RENA obligations for providing adequate sites in order to build our housing allocation if builders come forward and want to build it. So in other words, I mean, the absolute, end answer to the big question is, do we have to convert any of our property in order to meet RENA requirements through GPA referrals? And the answer is no, we do not.
No, we do not. Okay.
However, that does not satisfy the question of whether or not there's actually housing need that can be accommodated by these conversions.
In the future.
Yep.
Now or in the future.
Yeah.
Right.
Say that last one again?
Okay. There's a difference between RENA and having opportunity sites available for building versus what the community needs to satisfy housing demand.
But that's a whole nother theoretical question of how much you're going to build your city out. But as far as meeting what the state of California says we're supposed to do, we have satisfied that through 2021, and in that one deficit category doesn't hold that from happening because you've got surplus in the other ones.
That's correct. Yeah, especially in the low and very low, we have adequate surplus, which is acceptable to HCD.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Now I'm done.
I have two things. I was going to just point this out later during council comments, but since Mr. Norman talked about rental housing, I thought I'd bring to your attention, there was an excellent article on rental housing countywide in Sunday's paper, and I thought it was very interesting that Camarillo has the very lowest vacancy rate. It always has, but it's still 1.1. The other thing I wanted to point out, because we get a lot of criticism about how much construction is going on and how much building, but if you'll notice here, there were 3 years recently, 11, 12, and 13, and during those 3 years, there were a total of two units built in Camarillo. Our People's Past Ordinance, the Growth Control Ordinance, allows 400 allocations to be issued a year, and we still only had 2 units built in the 2-year period. That's in the staff report, and I just wanted to point that out.
Okay.
Bill,
Yes.
what's funny is we sit here like this, and I remember when I first became on the council, we were growing at 3,600 units a year. That's what was being built out there. We stopped that with the help of the people, of course. We stopped that, and they say 3,340 in so many years. Well, that was going every year. So I think we've done a good job in slowing it down in the city of Camarillo.
Can I ask one question, Bill?
Yeah.
Dave, just kind of quickly here, I just want a little clarification that we can identify these potential sites and these potential units, but we don't have to necessarily approve them for construction. Is that correct? To satisfy the RENA?
That's correct.
Okay. That's all I have.
Move to receive and file.
I just have one comment, and that is that regardless of on paper, whether we have satisfied this or that, the other thing, there are people out there that are in need of housing of various types. And I think we've got to keep that into, I mean, our population isn't, I don't see any place where more people are leaving California or Ventura County than are coming in or being here, being brought about naturally. So that's my comment. And if there's a motion to
Receive and file.
Receive and file, is there a second?
Second.
Moved and second. Any further discussion? If not, we'll please vote.
I would like to thank staff for putting this together. I think it's important that we know where we are and where we need to go in order before we make decisions.
Okay. Vote was 5-0. We're going to take a recess now, and we'll be back at 7:30 for other agenda items. Thank you.
Recess to a study session.
We're going to adjourn to a study session and a training session. Meeting of the City Council of Camarillo to order. And we've got a council member who has been delayed but will be here. So we'll wait for a roll call. Okay. All right, let's please call the roll.
Councilmember Craven.
Here.
Councilmember Kildee.
Here.
Vice Mayor Morgan. Here. Mayor Little.
Here. We've got a quorum of the council. Let's see. Councilmember Kildee, could you lead us in the flag salute?
Place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Okay, we have a number of presentations tonight, beginning with the announcement by the Chamber of Commerce of the top 10 Community Award winners. I believe Gary Cushing, are you? Want to?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go up here. Each year, the Chamber of Commerce puts on a program in which they select the top 10 people in the community that represent various groups, and so tonight we're going to have that. Would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, this is the 48th year for the top 10, and actually we've expanded it a little bit. We have a top 12 this year. So, but we didn't want to change the name of the event because no one would remember it then. You want me to hand it?
Yeah, why don't you hand them to me and see it? We're going to do this sort of like the Academy Awards, I think. So,
Bill, can you hold that close?
Bill, your microphone's not working.
can you hear?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we have, this is a new first-time award called the Camarillo Generosity Award. And it's sponsored by Dignity Health Medical Group of Ventura County, also known as Pleasant Valley Hospital in St. John's. And the award goes to the Meadowlark Service League. And also this year, the Chamber has provided information as to why they selected these people to receive these awards. And just very briefly, Meadowlark Service League has been actively involved in raising money and giving back to the community since 1971. Past 10 years, they've raised and given away over $3 million to the Red Cross, Boys and Girls Club, and St. John's Pleasant Valley Hospital, as well as the numerous other organizations. They raise money through their annual Home to the Holidays Home Tour, the annual charity luncheon and tennis tournament, and the Taste of Camarillo. So, congratulations to the Meadowlark Service League. Senior of the Year. This is sponsored by Atera Las Posas Senior Living. And the award goes to Jeanette Bassett. She's an active member in the Noontime Optimist Club, takes the lead in every activity she's involved in, especially for students, promotes junior Optimist clubs at 5 schools, and coordinator of the Red Ribbon Week Essay Celebration. So, congratulations, Jeanette. Youth of the Year. This is sponsored by the California State University Channel Islands. The Youth of the Year award goes to Kevin Morales, a young man who completely turned his life around in 2014. While completing community service, he continues to demonstrate he is a hard worker with a determined work ethic and respectful disposition. Kevin has significantly improved all aspects of his young life and has become an asset to the Boys and Girls Club staff. Congratulations, Kevin. Volunteer of the Year, sponsored by the Western State Petroleum Association. Volunteer of the Year award goes to Jesse Zamora. Instrumental in developing the Hispanic Business Council and the relaunch of the Young Professionals Group. Outgoing part of the Big Brother in the Noontime Buddies program, donated his time this year to help with the Shop with the Cop program. Congratulations, Jesse. Educator of the Year, sponsored by the MF Daily Corporation.
Microphone.
The Educator of the Year is Kim Dalapy. Kim Dalapy. A very nurturing teacher at Frontier High School. She's been the department chair, ASB advisor, peer resource advisor, among the many other leadership positions. And she has a special talent for building enthusiasm in her students. Congratulations, Kim. Service Organization of the Year, sponsored by the Ventura Investment Company. The Service Organization of the Year is United Parents. They assist parents of children with mental illness, emotional or behavioral disorders. Parents Helping Parents Organization, training parent partners to avoid crisis and conflict. They provide respite services, workshops, educational advocacy, and monthly support groups. Congratulations to the United Parents. You know, Camarillo is just full of organizations that all are worthy of those kind of honors, and we're very blessed to have them. The Public Servant of the Year, sponsored by the Law Office of Teresa McConville. Public Servant of the Year is to Lynn Jones. Lynn is the Community Outreach Manager at Camarillo Healthcare District, on the Board of Directors for the Ventura County Adult Abuse Prevention Council, advocate for seniors, and became a certified senior advisor in 2014. So much more. Congratulations, Lynn. Entrepreneur of the Year, sponsored by the Toll Corporation. The Entrepreneur of the Year is to Kevin Allen. Kevin is the owner of Airworks Solutions Heating and Air. He is an advocate for working and shopping local, based his business on service, not sales, and through his hard work, he's doubled gross revenue and hired 5 more employees in 2014. Sounds very successful. Congratulations, Kevin.
Kevin was a one-person shop until he hired 5.
Oh, okay. Well,
Business of the Year.
Business of the Year, which is sponsored by Roadrunner Shuttle. The Business of the Year is Compass Consulting. That company has made outstanding contributions to Camarillo-based charities, support of local and national animal rescue organizations, and created 5 new jobs in Camarillo this past year. Congratulations, Compass Consulting. Woman of the Year.
What?
What was that, Bill?
What is it?
This is Woman of the Year, sponsored by Courtyard of Marriott and Residence Inn. The Woman of the Year is Petra Lowe. She's on the board of directors of Hospice, spent over 20 years heavily involved in Casa Pacifica fundraisers, kind, loving, involved, devoted, extraordinary.
And her husband got Man of the Year last year.
That's true. So, congratulations, Petra.
Man of the Year.
And the Man of the Year is sponsored by County Commerce Bank. The Man of the Year, Don Tilquist. Don is an avid supporter and participant in so many local service organization events of the city. His leadership skills as chairman of the board of the Camarillo Chamber of Commerce this past year. And he has a heart of service and is a compassionate leader. Congratulations, Don. Okay, the last one is one that was created, I think, last year, called the Stan Daly Lifetime Achievement Award. This is sponsored by DCH Auto Group. The recipient of the Stan Daly Lifetime Achievement Award this year is Randy Churchill. I don't know why I'm reading it. Most of us know what he does, but his lifetime involvement in Camarillo Noontime Rotary, Camarillo Hospice, Camarillo Boys and Girls Club, Mount Cross Lutheran Church. He has been, or still is, in a leadership role in most of these organizations. And he does an average of 15 auctions per year for various nonprofit organizations, all for free. Thank you, Randy. Congratulations. Is that it?
That's it. The event is going to be held on March 20th at Sarah Center from 6 to 9. So we'll have tickets going on sale pretty soon, and they're about $85 a piece. And remember, last year it was sold out, and then we had about 80 people that couldn't go because they waited too long. So we moved it to Sarah Center. So hopefully we'll have that same problem this year. So get your reservations early. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
March the what now?
March 20th.
First day of spring.
That's quite a list of movers and shakers. Okay, back to the we have another presentation from Doug Tapkin, the Area Housing Authority update. Doug, would you like to come up to the lectern?
Thank you very much, Mayor, members of the council. With me tonight is Commissioner Stephanie Mercer. She's representative from your city. Our chairman, Norm Nagel, is also from the city, is not able to be with us tonight as he is attending another board meeting, which kind of gives you an idea of how involved he is. and wishes to tell you that at this particular point. We just completed our board meeting tonight. I'd like to take a few minutes and just kind of update you on what's been going on in the Housing Authority over the last year, as we are your housing authority. At this time, the Housing Authority currently owns and operates over $65 million in properties in the city of Camarillo. Now, that's up significantly from when Bill Little and I started this. When Bill was the city manager, it was significantly less than that. The largest property today is Mira Vista, a senior citizen property within this community, and comprises over 300 units of senior housing. We provide residential assistance in one form or another to almost 900 families. That's almost 2,100 people in the city of Camarillo today, providing assistance approaching $5 million in simply rental subsidy to this community. We are active participants both on the development side as well as the housing side. We administer these programs on your behalf, and they continue to be done in an exemplary fashion. As I have taken you and other members of the staff on tours, one of the things that we do is we go down the street and basically play Pick the Housing. And so far I can say successfully that none of you have picked out affordable housing programs that are owned and or managed by the Area Housing Authority. That is a testament not only to our commitment, but to your commitment to having housing that does not look like low-income affordable housing. And we're proud of that. And we continue to plan on doing that. We've extended our role in the community to provide additional community services to the residents of Mira Vista, something we weren't doing last year. This is a wonderful thing, as we have many, many senior citizens who need that type of assistance. It could be anything from simple counseling services to rental assistance programs to where do we go to get a doctor? Who do we deal with when we're running into income tax services? We participate in the Partnership for Safe Families and Communities, and now are representative on the Child Abuse Prevention Council, something that is becoming more significant within all of our communities. We're partners with the Workforce Housing Investment Board's Youth Council. We have our representatives working on that program on a regular basis. As a matter of fact, one of our representatives down in Long Beach today attending Workforce Council training programs on behalf of the County of Ventura. The Housing Authority, as you have seen on a regular basis, remains fiscally sound. Our audits are continually clean. Yes. It's one of those things that we can say that with some pride that for the last 18 years we have done so. This is a benefit not only to you, but again a commitment not only a part of the communities that we serve, but on a part of the Area Housing Authority to doing appropriate housing programs within the communities that we serve. A couple of things just to kind of bring you a little further on areas that we've gotten into that we haven't been into in the past. Several of the Housing Authority's properties are now being used by various studios for one-day or two-day programmatic. It's kind of odd all of a sudden to have a Housing Authority property being shown on national TV as part of a TV program. The latest one was a Hallmark channel program, of which has not aired yet, so I don't get to tell you the name. But you'll see now in some cases Housing Authority properties that are being part of that, again, because we're a good community and it's representative of what's going on within the area. We are your housing authority, and we continue to provide not only housing services, but partner within the community. We've worked with the Sheriff's Department on various programs. We work with the Chamber of Commerce on a regular basis. I attend their meetings and do other items along with them. I work with your staff on a regular basis to ensure that programs are done. We're looking forward to expanding the programs through our tax credit and locally owned programs. There will be no, quote, public housing, as the federal government is retreating from that program. We expect to see the federal government supply approximately 95% of the funding needed to do the Section 8 program over the next year, which is actually good, as it was 87% last year. And we expect to see about that same number for the administrative side, which means that we should be able to do our programs in an efficient, safe fashion. Later this week, you will get a report from the chairman and from Stephanie that will summarize in detail the activities of the Housing Authority, but we thought it would be appropriate tonight to come and give you a quick summary of what's going on. If you have questions, I would be pleased to answer them. If not, I will simply say good night.
Oh. Thank you, Doug. Any questions or comments from the City Council?
Just one comment.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, Doug, I just want to thank you and your organization for what you've done for the city. And these folks build quality, and I'm really thankful for that, and I appreciate your efforts. And I know putting together the financing for this is not always easy, and you've been able to do it successfully. And I thank all your board and your organization for the fine job over the number of years that I've been up here. And what you've done for our city, I think, has been right in line with what we always try to do, and, quality and service.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to thank you for running a good housing authority. When you came many years ago, the housing authority wasn't in such good shape. It was getting beaten up in the newspaper by some of its employees and by some of the tenants who were receiving Section 8 payments or subsidies. And I think you've done a wonderful job, so thank you.
Thank you. It's been our pleasure to do that.
Yes, Mike?
At one time, I think Charlotte and I both said, never again, when we had a project out by the Boys and Girls Club. But since you've come along, you've really made it a better, much more responsive to us kind of job, and I thank you.
My pleasure.
I'd just like to add, Doug mentioned the growth that this has occurred in the city of Camarillo and elsewhere since he showed up here sometime in the 1990s. I can't remember the exact year, but he's certainly, as the other councilmen have stated, he's done a terrific job. We're the better for it, and we appreciate your efforts and that of the Housing Commission. And thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, well, we have another nice event to go to, and that's to introduce our new police chief, Commander Monica McGrath. We also have our Sheriff Jeff Dean and our Under Sheriff Steve DeCesare.
Yeah, whatever you call him, it's all right. He gets paid really well. I didn't care what you call him.
Okay, whatever it is.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Mr. Frang, I just wanted to start by thanking the council and the city manager for working with us transition. I know it was a little bit sooner than we normally do on our contracts, and we appreciate your understanding. I guess one of the problems, we keep giving you good people, so they keep getting promoted. But you got a superstar here, and I think you know it. She's pretty excited, as she pointed out to me a few weeks ago, that she's worked every rank in the city of Camarillo. And I'm not sure if anybody's ever done that before. I mean, as a patrol deputy, a senior deputy, a sergeant, captain, and now back as commander. So I know she'll do a good job. She's really excited. I know Dr. Potts back here. She already told Dr. Potts she was going back to Rotary. And I know Bill's already after her about the Boys and Girls Club, so she'll quickly re-immerse herself in the community. And probably most important to me, although I'm just outside the city limits now, I got to make sure things stay safe here in Camarillo. But obviously I want her to say a few words. But again, I really appreciate the cooperation, all of you, and Mr. Feng working with me to make this happen. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Commander?
Bring the mic
Chief?
down. Well, good evening, Mayor Little, members of council, city staff. It is truly my honor to be here tonight as your new police chief. And as the sheriff mentioned, I have worked every rank of my career in the city of Camarillo, and I feel like I'm coming home. Even though I live in the city of Ventura, Camarillo has truly been my second home throughout my career. And all of you, most of you I know and have worked with throughout the years, it's been a great relationship. And I truly truly respect the city of Camarillo, how the city's run, how it's managed, very fiscally sound, and supportive of public safety. And that's huge because many people that live in the city of Camarillo, I understand, really enjoy the fact that the city cares and listens to everyone. So it is truly my honor to be your new police chief, and I really look forward to coming back. Bruce Fang, thank you very much for selecting me, and I will do a great job for you, and will be open to any suggestions and comments at any time. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, thank you.
Welcome.
Any councilman, do you have anything?
Well, she's keeping her promise to me because she said when she left, I want to come back someday. And every time I saw her, I said, you're still out in the jungle out there, aren't you? So she would want to come to Camarillo, of course. And she kept her promise. She came back to the morning Rotary. So we were worried about that in the Rotary. Is she going to come back?
Absolutely.
All right, great. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, Kevin.
Just kind of quickly, Monica, welcome back. And I know I've known you for a number of years, and I can remember I had some graffiti on my window at the store, and you came, and when I made the service call, you're actually one of them that actually showed up to that. So long-term relationship. I know you're going to do a really good job. We're lucky to have the quality, and I know, Steve is here as well, and Jeff's done a marvelous job in putting his personnel in the right places, and we're just really thrilled to have you here. And I know you're going to carry on with the great tradition of the Camarillo commanders and chief of police here. So welcome again.
Thank you. Thank you.
I just say welcome.
I just want to add one thing, if I may. I have very big shoes to fill. Obviously, Chief DeCesare was my mentor out here when I was captain. New Assistant Sheriff Guy Stewart, another great officer and another great leader. So I have big shoes to fill, and I plan on keeping that ship moving in the same direction as they have set out. So I'm really excited. Plus, they'll still be around if I have a question or two. I can certainly consult.
You just took away what I was going to say. We've been very fortunate and blessed in this city to have some wonderful police chiefs, commanders, who have guided the police department and have established the reputation we do have as a safe city. And I know you're going to continue to do that in that tradition, and we look forward to working with you and all the members of the Camarillo Police Department as well as the Ventura County Sheriff's Department. So thank you, and we look forward to it.
Your Honor, if I might. Welcome.
Thank
We're
you.
excited to have you. Obviously, we've known you for many years, and I believe she is our first female police chief.
Mm-hmm.
And we know you'll do a great job. You've shown us how much you love this community from the time you were here as a patrol officer, so thank you so much. And thank you to all that came before you, because they've certainly paved the way. But welcome. We look forward to it.
And Guy, we'll miss you.
We will.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to add also, what a great group. I know where the final budget approvals are over there as they go through Monica, so we appreciate having former Camarillo people in those key decision-making areas because you really do understand Camarillo and have done a great job of helping us be safe and efficient with our process. So we really appreciate that. And I have the privilege of getting all the comments from the public, some better than others, but when the announcement was made, they were extremely happy of your appointment. So congratulations.
Thank you.
You can let your hair down now, Monica.
I wish.
Thank you very much.
Because Camarillo is their favorite contract city, right?
Absolutely. Yes, it is.
You do live close by.
Yeah.
That was quick.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, now we return to public comment. We have three speaker cards, excuse me. There is three. First one is Matthew Lormer. Please state your name and for the record.
Good evening, Council. Matt Lormer. You'll find a pack in front of you. I was elected as president of the Lamplighter Homeowners Association. 227 units, over 700 people. Before I begin on that pack, I'll just read. I came on the 13th. I had a request for the City Council regarding the Rent Review Board, how the owner of the park sent a letter out saying that all rent increases are going to be upheld by the Rent Review Commission, which I'm still waiting for a response by the city manager. I know you guys need time to get back to me. Also, we want to restart talks with IPG. You know, during that time, Amber, IPG said, come to us, make us an offer, we'll work with you. We had no preconditions, and an offer was never made back to us. We want to restart those talks, so we're hoping the city manager will help us out. The parking issue, we brought up the parking issue because we feel the park was a senior park. It was turned into a family park. If you look at your pack, it says parking, 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 2010. The previous owner allowed parking till 10 o'clock at night. Here's a document from IPG saying they allowed parking also. Then in December, they sent a letter out that says, we are very sensitive to the parking situation and come up with a solution with the help from the city of Camarillo to provide additional parking for our residents. I asked if you guys did that. Obviously, it wasn't correct. The next thing, they asked for an addendum A. They wanted birth dates. Most residents refused to fill this out because it's too much personal information. I put NA on that stuff. The next thing, this letter was sent today. And they're saying there's misfacts, intentions, and now they don't want to do a parking program if they don't get enough responses. Well, their letter they sent offended a lot of people. We are asking for help with the parking situation because at the university they allow parking at 27 feet. The fire marshal signed off on that, and this is the new part of the university, not the old part. Again, we want to make a case for that, requesting to have replies by the city. Again, we do need to talk about having restarts with the rent situation because it is too high. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay. All right. The next card I have is Renee. You're going to have to help me with your last name.
Renee Himzon.
Himzon.
Renee Himzon.
Okay.
A few weeks ago, I received a letter from the Lamplighter Mobile Home Park. The letter stated that in the next few weeks, I would be receiving a notice that my rent would be going up by 5%, and the rent increase was already approved by the Camarillo Rent Review Board. But if I acted quickly and signed a long-term 15-plus year lease, the rent increase would be reduced to 3.5%, but I would be locking in an increase of at least 3.5% per year over the term of the lease. According to the letter, I had just 3 days to request a lease and 2 weeks to sign, or I would miss the offer. 2 days later, we met, and they gave me a sample, and we set a meeting to sign the lease the next Friday. Under a lot of stress, I decided to read the mobile home park law, or the mobile home law. After a few hours, I started to understand my rights. For example, the homeowner has at least 30 days to inspect a long-term lease for the time it is offered, from the time it is offered, and as a matter of fact, the sample lease had an area explaining this. During the lease signing, I initialed the 30-day inspection area and told the management that I was going to exercise my 30-day right to inspection. They pretty much said there was no such thing, even though it was plainly printed on the lease, and I showed them the law. The next day, I got a call from the regional manager, and she said the same thing. I later followed up with an email, and they repeated in writing that I didn't have 30 days, and I was at risk of losing out on the offer. Another thing I learned is you have the right to reject a long-term lease and accept a 12-month lease with the same monthly rent as a long-term lease. I still felt under pressure to get things signed because IPG had clearly stated they weren't going to recognize my right to 30 days of inspection. So on Monday, I went to the manager's office, handed him a letter stating that I rejected the long-term lease and requested a 12-month with the same rent. In response, the regional manager and I ended up arguing back and forth over email for the next 2 days. She continually deflected my request for a 12-month lease as required by law, but at some point she brought up the original lease signing and asked why we rejected the 12-month lease to begin with. So after all this arguing, a 12-month lease with a 3.5% rate was conjured into existence and according to her was available the whole time. I looked at all of my documentation and I asked my wife if she had remembered them ever mentioning a 12-month lease at 3.5%, we could find no evidence existing. So in the end, I accepted the one-year lease. From my experience, IPG isn't afraid to push the law and create high-pressure situations, and it's my belief a lot of Lamplighter residents have been wrongly squeezed into signing long-term leases that are completely unfavorable to the economic situation, and citizens shouldn't have to go through this kind of fight.
Okay. Any comments from the council?
Thank you.
Well, thank you. And we have, the last card is from Terry Bray. Terry, state your name for the record, please.
Good evening. I'm Terry Bray, Lamplighter Mobile Home Park, Space 63, president of the Golden State Manufactured Homeowners League, Chapter 616 Lamplighter. First of all, belated Happy New Year to everybody.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I wasn't able to write down what it is I wanted to say tonight, so I'm just winging it. First of all, it's an unfortunate incident, but I do want to thank the Ventura County Sheriff's Department. When I was up in San Luis Obispo meeting with the city attorney, and Bruce Fing was on the conference call, and the vice president of GSMOL, and the ordinance attorney who was hired to clarify mobile home rent stabilization ordinances, I received a phone call from a detective of the Ventura County Sheriff's Department. They took the initiative to follow through on my complaint of the bullying tactics of our Vice Mayor, Mr. Morgan, and they validated those complaints and did approach him and informed him he needed to back off on those bullying tactics. So I am very grateful. I didn't expect that phone call. But I'm satisfied that my needs were being met on a larger scale. So thank you to the Sheriff's Department. This letter that came out today in regards to, well, it's dated the 28th, I believe that you were given a copy of it. I was very concerned about a statement in here, accordingly from the manager of the park. It says, we are unsure why some tenants in particular like to misrepresent facts about our intentions, but we can assure you that we receive copies of their correspondence as well, and we are flabbergasted by the mistruths and misinformation being distributed to you for their own personal gain. I personally talked to the manager tonight before she closed the office. She claims that she does not write these letters, that these are written by Amber Monte, the president of IPG, and she is told to sign these. I asked her, what are the documents that you are signing for, and she says she doesn't know what they are. I requested copies. She said she would put in that request to Amber Monte, and I said, you do realize, I mean, this is a very nice lady, Margaret. I said, you do realize that the residents believe that this is coming from you? And she says, yes, I know, but I don't question what I'm told to sign. That's the manager speaking. It's not good. In regards to the parking situation, they say they're now going to enforce nobody parking in the guest parking. We have no place to park in the park if you have more than 2 vehicles. We don't. People who parked on Pettit Avenue trying to cooperate with this enforcement had vehicles broken into now. Ladies at work at night, they won't park back there. Okay. There's no solution being offered by IPG.
Okay. Any questions of Terry Bray?
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
Council, have any comments? I'd like to, we haven't visited, the council has not visited or revisited this issue for a while. I know the city manager has been working on a number of meetings over the last part of last year, and I think it might be good to have a kind of an update as to where everything is.
Yeah, there's a number of items that we were planning on bringing back. Probably not at the next meeting, the 11th, but after that, the 25th of February, a comprehensive report that encapsulates these items and previous items.
Okay, that's good. All right.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments from the public? If not, we'll move on to the next item, which is a public hearing regarding zoning ordinance amendment addition of new chapter 1961, temporary use permits. Joe, are you or David?
It's going to be me tonight.
Okay.
I started this one, I get to finish it.
All right.
All right. So we're going to talk about temporary use permits this evening. And so what is a temporary use permit? A temporary use permit allows for the short-term use of property with appropriate regulations so that such uses will be compatible with surrounding properties. It's longer than a special event permit, but it's shorter than a development permit, which is considered to be a permanent use. Generally, they're issued for up to 6 months with an opportunity for a 6-month extension. It usually provides for an expedited approval process, which includes administrative approval subject to appeal or council order of review, must be compatible with surrounding land uses. The use must have adequate parking on site or acceptable alternate locations must be identified and approved, and the use would generally be CEQA exempt. So why do we need temporary use permits? Well, we have a gap between special event permits and development permits. In the past, special event permits were issued and extended to bridge this gap. And however, the special event permits are not intended to be extended into months and years. They're meant to be, for events, so to speak. There are events that we do have that are what we consider to be serial events that run for a season, like the summer concert series, but those are well known. We're talking about things like permitting what you would normally permit in a conditional use permit for a special permit, and then it gets extended over months and months, and the gap is tried to be filled where it should have gone through a different process. So there are situations where a temporary use permit can help. For example, short-term parking for construction equipment, like for public works projects, demonstration projects, for example, the Coal Planet biofuel package plant. That was a situation where a special event permit was used, and it was extended, for about 1.5 years, which was too long. Short-term parking for long-term phase development projects, and short-term property use where the use is not permitted in the zone but is not otherwise objectionable. So what we're proposing is a new code section for administrative approval of temporary use permits, similar to the special event permits. The director may impose conditions of approval, not limited to provision of temporary parking facilities, regulation of nuisance factors, regulation of temporary buildings and structures, provision of sanitary facilities, provision of solid waste collection and disposal, security and safety measures, regulation of signs, regulation of operating hours and days, submission of a performance bond if needed for the removal of site improvements, and other conditions to ensure the operation of the temporary use, that it's orderly. Also, in terms of the duration of a temporary use permit would be issued for an initial period up to 6 months, which requires an approved temporary use permit to be filed with the city clerk and the secretary of the Planning Commission. It also requires notification of all property owners within 300 feet before the director actually approves the temporary use permit. And it can be appealed to the director's decision can be appealed to the Planning Commission. The council can order a review of the director's decision or the Planning Commission's appeal decision. A one-time extension of up to 6 months may be issued upon the submittal of an application for a time extension. And this also requires the approved extension to be filed with the city clerk and the secretary of the Planning Commission, requires notification of all property owners within 300 feet prior to issuance, and the director's decision can be appealed to the Planning Commission. The council can order a review of the director's decision or the Planning Commission's appeal decision. And the temporary use permit can be revoked by the director after noticed public hearing. The decision to revoke a temporary use permit can be appealed to the Planning Commission, and the City Council can order a review of the director's decision for revocation or the Planning Commission's appeal decision upon the director's decision to revoke. Next steps. This was reviewed by the Planning Ordinance Committee on January 6th, and recommended to the Planning Commission that considered it on January 20th. And therefore, the Planning Commission is recommending the City Council adopt the ordinance for the new text for this new section, Chapter 19.61, for temporary use permits. And then if you adopt the ordinance and then take it through second reading, enactment of this ordinance or its effective date would be March 13th, 2015. And that concludes my report.
Okay. Any questions, council of staff?
I do
Yes,
have one, Your Honor. On the notification to property owners, is that done by you or is that done by the applicant?
No, it's done by the planning division.
Okay.
And so 10 days before the director actually makes the decision, postcards will go out to owners within 300 feet, informing them that we have this proposal for a temporary use permit. We intend to approve it. If you have any questions or concerns, please give us a call. They can then contact the director, say, hey, I'm concerned about X, Y, and Z, and the director can consider that information before he or she makes a decision. Okay. Then that decision is not effective for 10 days after the decision is made. Similar to any other planning, for example, when the Planning Commission approves a project,
Right.
you have a 10-day appeal period. That allows anyone to appeal the project, or it gives the City Council time to order a review if necessary.
Okay, so it's because you're not holding a public hearing and you don't do the official notice, you're kind of doing a process where it notifies them and it's more of an informal, they can call you, they can write you a letter, they can...
That's correct. And,
get involved.
And so it helps
Okay.
streamline the
That's good.
process, and yet provides for due process and gives everybody an opportunity to be able to play a part if they need to.
And I'm assuming that there'll be some way of, that you track that they've all been sent notices. I can see that the thing we'll hear, oh, I wasn't told, about it, and
Yeah, we can ensure that we do.
that, to prove that you did indeed notify. Good, sounds good.
Well, we can prove we sent something, we can't prove they read it.
Well, that's their problem, but as long as you sent it and you can prove you sent it, then that's all you can do.
Any other questions? All right. There's no further discussion. Why don't we have a request for the reading of the title? Mr. Attorney.
This is Ordinance 1103, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Camarillo.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor,
Public hearing, I think.
open public
Oh,
hearing.
I'm sorry. I apologize. Perhaps he wants to hear. All right. We will open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone on the public that would like to be heard. As I was correct the first time there was. We'll close the public hearing.
Check the box, Mr.
I know. All right. Now, would the city attorney please read the title?
I'll do that. It's ordinance number 1103, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Camarillo, California, adding Chapter 19.61, temporary use permits, to Title 19, zoning of the Camarillo Municipal Code.
I'll move to waive further reading and introduce the ordinance adding Chapter 19.61 temporary permits to the Camarillo Municipal Code.
Second.
Moved and seconded. In discussion? If not, please vote. That motion approved 5-0. I think that, okay. That takes care of the council agenda for 7:30. We do have we did not get our report of activities on the 5 o'clock agenda, so we'll go back to that. Ask the city manager, do you have anything you'd like to bring to the council?
Yeah, I have two very quick items that we will be bringing back to you in the upcoming few months. One is the animal services agreement with the city and the county. We did have a kickoff discussion. I won't call it a negotiation, at least not yet. Basically, the existing agreement is very, very old, and there's areas it only addresses dogs, for example. There's no lions and tigers and bears and all the other things we find out there. So it only addresses dogs. So we're going to be updating that. I can tell you that the county has been subsidizing all the cities somewhat because the costs have grown. relative to the legal ability for the county to charge the cities, because the agreement is old. So we're going to work further on this, try to understand the different parties' goals and objectives. We do have a city manager meeting. Almost all the cities are with the animal services in the county.
Thousand Oaks, I don't think.
Yeah, and in different degrees, not all equal. And we'll get together with the city manager group, and the county will be there as well to work on this collectively. And I'll be bringing that back to you in another couple months. They want to get this adopted with their budget, with the new agreement, so it'll be a relatively short deadline, and we will do a full vetting and due diligence. Then the other item, as you know, we dissolved RDA, and we've been working with this state over the last 2.5 years, and we had a very good round of meetings last week with our consultant, potential investors, operators, developers on every one of our projects, the hotel conference, the fire station, and the recreation site. And we'll be bringing that back to you as well. And what we're working on now is really the marketing analysis that will tell you and guide you in how to make your policy decision on what to do going forward. The marketing analysis looks pretty good, but the issue is always with how do we fund these things and finance these items. So we'll be bringing that back to you with different options. We hope before the end of March, but that just depends upon how quickly we can get the information. But things are moving along, and that's my report.
Any questions of the city manager? Is that it?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Attorney?
I have no items.
Okay. I'll start here. Charlotte, you want to lead off?
Sure, I have several things. I attended the Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Authority meeting this afternoon before I came here, and there were two things I want to tell you about that we talked about. First of all was a totally revolutionary concept as far as I was concerned. The mission of the Fox Canyon GMA is to protect the aquifer and from saltwater intrusion. And so Tony Moran from United presented something they're working on, which would actually pump water out of the aquifer and force more water in, and they would treat it. In other words, give up on not having any more salt water come in and just work with what they have. So that's something they're batting around. They're proposing to put it in some kind of a depression in the West Oxnard area and near Wainimi Road. And it was quite novel to all of us except the one board member who is on the United board and had heard the presentation before, and I guess they've been talking about it for a while. But the rest of us are going to chew it over. They said they're probably the first of 100 stages in this, and we'll be hearing more and more about it. But I thought I'd tell you that this is being batted around.
Charlotte, before you
Yes.
leave that, go ahead, Bill.
Do I understand what they're saying is that they would pump out the brackish water, whatever water they have, let more seawater in, and then bring that up and treat it with,
Yes.
With a desalination
Yes.
process?
Yes.
They've got
I think they ought to deal with the one that's before them now and has been before them before they start embarking upon another one.
No, you don't understand. United Water Conservation District is proposed this.
But it still would have to be approved by the GMA.
Well, it has to, but it was just a report, and United will never be dealing with our desalter.
I'm not talking about United, I'm talking about the GMA.
Oh, well, you said they, and I thought you meant United. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So they're talking about building a desal plant over there.
Well, they have one, don't they?
No. The only one they have is out there by Oxnard, Wainimi on South Oxnard, where that's the one they're trying to get to pump out to farmland. But they haven't got any customers.
The great project, yeah.
And they need $20 million more to finish the lines.
This project right now in today's dollars is anticipated to cost $100 million to build. As I said, they're batting it around. I don't know how long they'll be batting it. Probably longer than I'll be on that board. I've been there, 8 years now or something. But anyway, I just thought I'd tell you about that. You might also hear some repercussions of a vote I did today. The city of Ventura came in and asked for a waiver of the restrictions to cut back another 10% on pumping. In fact, they wanted us to take away all the restrictions and the cutbacks they've had on pumping and to add another 2,000 acre-feet a year to it. And I voted against that because I said their situation wasn't much different once I read what it was than any of the other cities, and I could just visualize, even though I'm not a person who does a lot of visualizing, I could visualize a long line of all the municipalities and water companies outside the director's office who already had their waiver applications filled out, I was sure, standing to turn them in.
You did a good job.
And so it wasn't going to be...
Did it pass?
No, it failed. But I gathered from the looks that the City of Ventura people were not too happy. So at future meetings, you'll probably be hearing about that. I noticed, and I'm sure you did too, under the headlines, they buried it back on page 3B of the Star on Thursday the 22nd, and they had the title, Area Cities Get Low Tobacco Grades. However, if you read to 1, 2, 3, the fourth column in the middle paragraph, it does say that Camarillo and Moore Park got A's, and that was because of the changes we're going right now in the tobacco ordinance. So I congratulate us, and we all ought to pat ourselves on the back, even though the headline was Area Cities Get Low Grades. I'm going to ask for this now because every year during evaluations, there are always some council members, myself included, who say, these forms just don't do it. So I was wondering if we could have the policy committee review the forms for city manager and city attorney evaluations. And that's all I have.
Okay. All right. I just, one comment on that smoking or the cigarette F that they gave us. My reasoning is the cities have done about everything they can under state law, and some of them have not dealt with the e-cigarettes that we have been dealt with, but it's awfully hard to make progress when you've maxed out your legal options on.
Well, we got A's.
I know. I'm not talking about us. I'm just saying I thought that the person that was making the criticism of the efforts doesn't realize that you can't go beyond what you're allowed to do. So anyway, all right, Kevin.
2 items. Just attended 2 VRSD meetings, January 15th and the 28th, and that's all I have tonight.
Okay, Jan.
VCOG was my, where I hung out a little bit this past month for meeting-wise. I have one item. I've noticed that many of the other cities have taken a position on this proposed, and I've forgotten what they're calling it, the trains that will carry the crude oil up and down and back and forth. And I would hate to see the city of Camarillo not be included in that. I think it's something that's obviously affects our community since the trains go through Camarillo. So I would like to, if nothing else, to have the legislative committee look at it or to bring it directly here, whichever route. But I think the city needs to be involved in the...
If I could, Mr. Mayor, we've started that process for quite a while now. We have a report. Is it the 11th or the 25th you're coming back?
I'm shooting for the 11th.
Okay.
Good. Okay.
We have some very interesting information, and we're trying to become experts on the real facts.
Good.
And I understand facts on the issue.
Yeah. I was just going to say what's been talked about. I think we should talk about, but only as it pertains to Camarillo, not as to how it might affect Carpinteria or St. Louis Obispo or any of them.
We represent the city of Camarillo, and it's going through I agree with you, it's going through our town, so how it would affect us. And I think I want to bring another one back because I've heard Mr. Morgan's phone go off about 12 times tonight.
Yeah, it's malfunctioning.
Well, it probably shouldn't be on the dais, and I think it's actually a council policy. If not, I'd like it sent to the council policy committee.
Okay, so noted.
Who's on policy?
Okay, Mr. Morgan.
I'm sorry if it went off. You hadn't heard it, but something's happening. I don't know what's happening. It's just buzzing, and there's nobody calling. Nothing happening. So I got to take it in the shop tomorrow and find out what's going on. And it was buzzing inside my jacket. I got tired of it. So sorry about that. Anyway, things happen. But I mean, you do ordinances for everything that happens, or rules, because something happened. Anyway, I've just got a few things to talk about tonight. And one would be WaterWise. I went to the WaterWise meeting, and that's one I'd like to invite you guys to anytime you want to come. I'm on Awa, and we had the WaterWise meeting. They always bring in a good speaker. This time it was the meteorologist who actually, what you get on the LA stations is from him. And so as he was speaking and explaining what he does and what they do, you get a chance to ask questions. I says, well, what happened last week? That's when they predicted 40% chance on one day. And it turned out to be 2 days and 1.63 inches. And he says, we blew it. And then he explained why. Because sometimes these southerly, especially southerly storms, start developing over the ocean right near us. And they come in and it's not expected. So that was kind of interesting. But he said you get past 6 days, you can't accurately predict anything. So when we get these things and I'm going a month ahead, good luck. That's what he said. A week is about right.
You've been pretty accurate, though.
Yep. And so anyway, the WaterWise thing is one I'd like to invite. Anytime you want to come, let me know. And we go at 7 o'clock in the morning, and that's when they do it. Camp Springs Town Hall meeting. That was quite interesting. We were there 3 hours. Bill was there with me. And we had some experts come in and talk, especially a geologist that said, it's going to happen again. It wasn't just the rain. I don't believe that. Sorry. But I've been here for a lot stronger rains than that. And the fire that went through helped set that up on both the other side of the mountain and this side of the mountain. Because it's never come down in 52 years I've been here. And it hasn't had real hot storms like that, fires. So anyway, there's some disagreements, but it was a great little place to go to. Barbara was here. She helped. John Fraser and Barbara helped set that up, I think, right?
Yes.
And they brought us some great speakers, and so it was very, very educational. Also, EDCVC, we had our annual meeting over at the See, there it goes again. It's not even ringing. Can't figure it out.
Sarah Center.
Anyway, over at the Sarah Center, we had a EDCVC meeting. That was very good. Excuse me. So,
sorry, I just called you, Mark.
I'll stick it under here.
Just kidding.
There's no calls going through. That's the thing. I started checking, going, what the heck? It's off. It's off. It is off.
And it's still going on.
Yes. That's what I'm trying to tell you. I can't figure out what's going on. It's been off since I got in here. So
you want to put it out the back door?
I'm not going to do it. I'm going to put it next to her desk now. Anyway. We had the EDC. That was a very good meeting, but it was one of those end of the year meetings, giving out awards and telling how good everybody did and all that good stuff. Finance Investment Committee meeting. We had a meeting with Finance. We did, and that was one where we brought our representative in to tell us how we're doing in all the different funds and so forth, and how we're abiding by all the rules that we're supposed to abide by. And they're also talking. We're not making a whole lot. This is not the time you make a whole lot when you get conservative investments, but we're not losing anything either. We're still making it. So I was happy with what they had to say. I've got a request. A number of massage parlors in town. I'd like to get an idea how many we have. I was in Thousand Oaks last week to meet someone, and I had to go through these different shopping centers along Thousand Oaks because they're all back in. They're little ones. Every time I went into one, there's a massage parlor. Every one. But I've heard they did a moratorium in Simi Valley and Thousand Oaks now, and Ventura. I'd like to look and see how many we have. I think there's about 7 or 8. But could we get a report on that? I've had some complaints, and I'd like to see what we've got here. Because those that have moratoriums could move over here.
Yeah, we'll be happy to do that. I know it's in the 30s. It's more than 7 or 8. Yes.
Oh, my. I think
We need ones that are standalone massage parlors, not necessarily physical therapy places that...
No, just the massage parlors.
Okay.
And remember, this new state law came into play that we now can regulate again.
I'd like to see how
And
many
that's
we
what
have,
should
and if there's something
solve the problem.
we can do.
We're going to do that. It seems to me that we ought to also, at the time we get this information, is to get a report from the police department as to the problems that they may have in enforcing laws in those places. If we see if we have a problem, it does us no good if we don't have any problems, that's fine. If we do, we should do more than just know how many there are.
Well, we can get that in the report from our sheriff, I think. If we know how many we've got here and something from the
I
sheriff.
think we ought to have it all at
So
one time. Yes.
Maybe this is a legal question, I'm not sure, but can the regulation be of the hours of operation? Or if you don't have that information, maybe you can get it to us at some time?
We'll get back to you on what can and can't be done in that regard. I know there are some new state laws on it.
All right, Mike, anything else?
No, that's all. That's all.
All right, a couple of things. I, too, attended the Camarillo Springs Town Hall meeting, and it was well attended, not only by the residents, but also by the providers of governmental and private services that were there. And I thought all the agencies did a good job. Hats off to John Frazier for organizing it. I had several people say this was the best thing that they had since this whole thing started. Also, Tom Fox did a very fine job in explaining the city's position and the improvements that were put in place and the limitations thereof. And so it was well done. And so they got a lot of good information out to those people. And talking to them, a lot of them are getting getting their claims taken care of by their insurance companies. They seem to be stepping up to accepting the fact that it was the fire that triggered the event and not a water-related. Water was just incidental to what caused the event. So anyway, it was a very good program, and you heard today from Barbara Williams how pleased they are. I too also, along with Mike, attended the dinner meeting of the EDC-VC at the Sarah Center, and they had John Chang, who is the treasurer of the state, gave a talk. He was very good, and so also we had our Economic Development Committee meeting on last Friday. Councilmember Craven was unable to be there. She was out of town, but it was well attended by the chamber and other people. And appreciate the reports from the various departments. Other than, I also talked about wanting to have something done with the massage parlors. I think it's time we looked into what's going on and what the new law allows us to do and not to do. So we'll ask for that report as soon as we can. Okay, that's all I have. Is there anything to come before this?
We have to continue our meeting in the back.
Council, yes, we're going to adjourn to the study session on the ethics training. So we'll all be ethical. Okay. If I hear, we'll stand adjourned.